What if I mistakenly charged HST without being registered? It happens more often than you would think. A US business starts invoicing Canadian customers, adds a line for HST because it looks professional, but never actually registers for GST HST in Canada. At some point, someone realizes that the company has been charging tax without a registration number, and the question becomes what to do next. The short version is that you generally cannot just keep that money. Amounts collected as or on account of GST, HST are treated as tax, and CRA expects them either to be remitted or refunded and corrected. Why charging HST without registration is a problem. Under Canada's Excise Tax Act, GST HST is supposed to be collected by registrants. When a non-registrant shows an amount as GST HST on an invoice or otherwise collects an amount as or on account of tax, that amount can still be treated as tax in the legal sense. The law is designed to protect customers. If they paid something labeled as tax, the system wants that amount either returned to them or sent to the government. From CRA's perspective, leaving unregistered businesses free to collect HST and pocket it would be a recipe for abuse. First question, should you have been registered? The first thing to figure out is whether you actually should have been registered during the period when you charged HST. If your taxable supplies to Canada were above the $30,000 small supplier threshold in a given quarter or over 4 consecutive quarters, you probably were required to register. If you were under the threshold, registration might have been optional. If you were legally required to register, CRA may expect you to register retroactively, file returns back to the date you should have registered, and remit the tax you charged. In that process, you may be able to claim input tax credits on eligible Canadian expenses, which can offset part of the liability. If you collected HST in error, if you were not required to register and you collected amounts as if they were GST, HST, CRA guidance is clear that you are not entitled to a rebate for amounts collected in error. Instead, you are expected to correct the situation by refunding or crediting the customers and issuing a credit note. Once you have refunded the customer and documented the correction, you can adjust your net tax if you are a registrant or avoid remitting tax that was never properly chargeable. For a non-resident that never registered, the usual cleanest approach is to put customers back into the position they should have been in, a price without HST. That means either refunding the tax portion or adjusting future invoices for continuing relationships. Retroactive registration as a cleanup strategy. In many real cases, a business that mistakenly charged HST was also over the threshold and should have registered anyway. In those situations, advisors often recommend contacting CRA, explaining the error, and registering retroactively. Once registered, you can file the missing returns, report the tax you collected, and claim any input tax credits you are entitled to. This is rarely a fun process, but it puts the business back inside the system. After that, you can decide whether to keep the account active and compliant or to close it properly if Canadian operations are winding down. What if you do nothing? Simply keeping the amounts and hoping it goes unnoticed is not a great plan. If CRA eventually reviews your situation, it can treat collected amounts as tax and require you to remit them, potentially with penalties and interest. Customers who were charged HST may also complain if they discover that you were not registered, especially business customers who tried to claim input tax credits but could not support them with a valid registration number. In some sectors, such as real estate or large B2B services, counterparties are particularly sensitive to HST errors and may insist on seeing proof of registration. How to communicate with customers. If you need to fix past invoices, clear communication helps. You may need to explain that tax was charged in error and that you are refunding that portion or issuing a credit against future services. For some customers, especially businesses, you may also need to reissue invoices without HST or with corrected tax information so their own books and potential input tax credit claims are accurate. The goal is to avoid double pain. You do not want to end up remitting tax to CRA and also refunding the same amount to customers because the situation was mishandled. When to get professional help? Once you discover that you have been charging HST without registration, you are dealing with at least three moving parts: whether you should have been registered, how much was collected, and how much of your Canadian expenses may qualify for input tax credits if you regularize your status. On top of that, you have customer relationships and possible voluntary disclosure options to consider. For anything more than a handful of invoices, it is usually smart to get an advisor involved. They can help you decide whether to pursue retroactive registration, voluntary disclosure, or simple refunds, and how to sequence the steps so you do not pay more than you have to. Final thoughts. Charging HST without being registered is not the end of the world, but it is not something to ignore. The money you collected as HST is not just extra margin. It is either owed to the government, owed back to the customer, or both, depending on your facts. The cleanest approach is to figure out whether you should have been registered, correct past filings or registrations where needed, and either remit or refund the tax in an orderly way. That may feel painful in the short term, but it is far better than dealing with CRA notices and unhappy customers later. If you want more step-by-step guidance on cleaning up Canadian GST, HST issues as a US business, you can visit our website for detailed resources and checklists. If you require assistance with Canadian tax matters, our team is ready to provide reliable professional support. Please contact us at 416-283-8774 or visit theaccountingandtax.com for more information. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.